To understand why globalization is important for countries, how it impacts them, let's have a look at Indian and Chinese economies. In late 1980s, China started opening up of its economy and adopted reforms in two stages. First, focused on fetching foreign investment, and second, to promote privatization of its different sectors. Reforms proved successful for China and it became second largest in GDP after US and largest exporter and second largest importer in world trade. As we can see from the graph, which shows China's annual GDP growth from 1991 to 2020, that its GDP rose significantly in 1992 after reforms were introduced which kept steady till 2019. We can also see the impact of COVID-19 on their economy. In 2020, it turned negative. Here is the example of India, which opened up its economy in 1991 by bringing LPG concept, which is liberalization, privatization and globalization. As a result, India became 10th largest in GDP and 7th largest in services trade. Globalization benefited India's service sector and make it an attraction for foreign investment. The graph shows India's annual GDP growth from 1996 to 2020 and we can see that it had significant impact of India's economic growth, which has variations until 2020. Globalization has benefits that cover many different areas. It developed economies all over the world and increased cultural exchanges. It also allowed financial exchanges between companies, changing the paradigm of work. Many people are nowadays citizens of the world. The origin of goods became secondary and geographic distance is no longer a barrier for many services to happen. Let's dig deeper. The most visible impacts of globalization are definitely the ones affecting the economic world. Globalization has led to a sharp increase in trade and economic exchanges, and also to a multiplication of financial exchanges. In the 1970s, world economies opened up and the development of free trade policies accelerated the globalization phenomenon. This significantly contributed to increasing the interactions between different regions of the world in form of FDI and thus increased GDP. The integration of the global economy has mainly been due to the rapid spread of IT and communications that enabled countries like India and China to circumvent the aspects that were holding them back. In other words, the increasing interconnectedness was driven by real-time communication between the West and the East, which enabled these countries to reach out to wider markets and audiences in the Western countries. The classic example in this regard is India, that has managed to tap into the booming market for IT and process outsourcing. The integration of economies around the world created competition among countries. So, to gain more from globalization, countries started taking comparative advantage of the products which were easy to manufacture and thus export. As a result, the importing countries tend to have more options and cost advantage due to competition. When we discuss globalization, we often take into account the fact that both countries that are partners in trade benefit from the exchange. What this means is that a country A that specializes in a particular good or service can trade with country B that specializes in another good or service. In this way, both countries stand to gain as they import the goods that are cheaper to make in the other country.